We are in the penultimate episode of the show, and it's got me so excited for what comes next. Hey there, this is your Matt Doodle to my Thomas here, Doodle here with another video. And today, I'll talk about Daredevil, Born Again, episode 8. I am so glad and happy on how the show ended up being. The reason I say that is because we all know that this show was originally something completely different, but it wasn't tested well, so they had cut it, kept things they liked, and made it into the show that we know now, and made it a successor to the Daredevil Netflix show. But because of that, it does feel like a lot of things were either like chopped out, added on, all mashed up together, and kind of felt like we were missing context because of that, or that some things were shifted. But I feel like this second to last episode is the culmination to that, because this episode feels like what they were leading towards, something that this show was made for this show. Not anything that was cut or shifted or anything like that. The reason I say that is because of what they talk about and who they talk about. Because when we start this episode, we see Bullseye is back in prison, but back. He's being shifted to a different prison, and it looks like he's being put into general population to probably get killed. Probably by our sweet old mayor, Fisk, right? But on the flip side, we see that Fisk and Vanessa are getting back on track on what they're supposed to be as a couple, as a team. And it looks like they're actually doing better. That Fisk is not wanting to keep secrets from her anymore, which is a good thing, but also not, because, his secrets are usually very bad things. But on the flip side of them, we see that Kristen and Matt's relationship is actually going down. It's not doing well, mainly because of the whole vigilante thing. Because, like I said, I knew this was going to happen. Kristen is mad at vigilantes now. She doesn't like Muse. She doesn't like Daredevil, even though Daredevil had saved her. And Matt even points that out, which is funny because that's him. And of course, he's the one who knows that. He even tries to point out that Daredevil saved her. But technically, she is right because she did save herself. But that's not the whole point she should be looking at. But I feel like the fact that she doesn't like Vigilante is going to keep the fact that he's Daredevil from her, which is never good in a relationship. But this whole thing gets worse because while they're arguing, basically Fisk's right-hand man, the new Wesley, comes in, invites Kristen to a party where all the very powerful people are there, or that she's going to be showcased because of her trauma. And even Matt points out that this is a bad idea, mainly because it is Fisk. And this is where I say that this feels more like the original Netflix TV show because of how nervous Matt is, how uncomfortable he is, how obsessed he is about Fisk. This feels very in line to the old show. But of course, Kristen is not listening, but she invites him to the party to keep an eye on her, ironically. So that's good. But you know how I was saying that Fisk is also trying to bring Vanessa back to his world and, not keep her in the dark? Well, he does that a little too well, because they go into the basement, where Fisk supposedly killed Adam. At least that's what I thought. But apparently Adam was still alive, which I don't know how, because the beating he had in the last episode he was in was brutal. I legit thought he died. But apparently he's alive, and Vanessa sees. And I was under the impression that, she would at least somewhat care because she did kind of have an affair with him. So that's interesting. But I find it funny that Fisk was trying so hard, but he's like, I am better. I did not kill him immediately. I kept him alive specifically for you. And this is how you know that they are back in the same page. Because when Adam is pleading for his life, pleading so much that he won't tell anyone, Vanessa goes and kills Adam. Basically saying that, yeah, she's back with Fisk and back to their evil ways together. So I'm wondering how that's going to be, and it feels right, if that makes sense. But while the two happy couple are doing well, Matt is not so well, because McDuffie goes and talks to him about the fact that Bullseye is, back and that he's in prison, but wants to talk with Matt. And this whole thing is making Matt spiral even more, which feels very much in line to Matt himself, especially for what Bullseye did to his best friend. And while things are going bad for Matt, again, it seems like things are really going well for Fisk, because when he's in his office talking about how, his task force is doing great, how it's ruffling up people, and how it's a good thing, which it's not, just strokes Fisk's ego. And then we find out that, the guy that was talking to BB in the last episode to change the news to being that Daredevil didn't stop Muse, it was the task force. BB actually did that. She actually said on her page that it was the task force, which I am genuinely so surprised. I'm wondering why she did that. I do feel like there's an ulterior motive because of what we see in the end of this episode. But I find it so interesting that the Gen Z guy, again, forgot his name, sorry, Daniel, that's his name, that Daniel was able to get into her head. Or that could just be a reverse psychology thing. I'm not sure. But it looks like Fisk appreciates Daniel so much for this thing. And this is where I do feel like that Daniel is Fisk's pseudo son now because of how he's treating him, how he's giving him more responsibilities. So I'm curious if Daniel's going to die, at least in the end of this show. I'm not sure. What do you think? And on the other hand, it looks like Matt is just not doing well even more because it looks like from what McDuffie told him about Bullseye, it's just making him worse because when he has a client that obviously is not a good guy, his powers will obviously tell him if the guy is wrong or right, but he can't tell McDuffie. He can't tell that this guy is BSing everyone. So it's really messing him up and he really can't tell her. But I also think it's because of Poindexter that it's getting in his head that, it's making him feel like he can't do anything. And I am so sorry for Matt, this pain and anguish. But since that, Matt goes to, I think this is Josie's bar, or it could be that other bar that they mentioned at the beginning of the show. I'm not sure. Because a lady that was from the original show said she was thinking about reopening. Yeah, he was talking to her. They were talking like old buddies, as if this was the previous Netflix show. But Cherry finds him. He really wants to make sure that he's okay, but he obviously wants him to not be Daredevil anymore. And I like that their conversation is very friendly, even though, they're very on opposite sides of what they want to do. But something that I find interesting here is that Matt puts together that Foggy knew about something, about Benny, the guy who had called Foggy before Bullseye had shot him. And I am generally curious about the whole Benny situation. I don't know anything that happened there. So I am kind of in the dark. I may have just not heard it right. So I'm a little confused there. But apparently it's a big deal because Matt leaves without his cane. So it shows that he's not really thinking about his secret identity, and he's kind of slacking on it because Josie even points out he didn't bring his cane. So that's interesting. But I guess Matt's curiosity gets the better of him because he does go to Bullseye and talks to him, but you can see how obviously angry and pissed off Matt is here. And I love the acting here. Bullseye is obviously trying to sound like, oh, I'm just an innocent boy. I'm an innocent guy. I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve to be in this general population place. I don't deserve to die, even though you do. But Matt obviously just can't let this guy die because that's his whole thing. That's his whole superhero thing. He can't let someone die. I love how Matt helps him in the most brutal way possible. He basically smacks Poindexter's head over and over to the ground and tells the cop he did it to himself to make him seem insane so he can be put in a safer place. That's good on Matt that, his morals keep him in line, right? That he doesn't want him to die. Even his worst enemy, the guy that killed his best friend. But that will bite him in the ass later. And I'll talk about that when he gets there. But now it's time for a party. And it looks like this is going to be where we're mostly at throughout this episode now. We see BB and Daniel talking with each other. And again, I am very confused and curious why she lied and basically said that the task force is the one that stopped Muse. But Daniel is obviously being very confident about the whole thing. But I love that BB basically points out how he's being a mama's boy to Fisk, or I guess Papa's boy in this case. But the way they're talking to each other, it could be just how I'm interpreting, but are they trying to make it look like they're having a romantic fling at all? Because I really would not like that to happen. That would just be weird and stupid, and BB's smarter than that, but maybe not because she did take his bribe, I guess. I don't know. But another thing that's actually very interesting is that we see the swordsman is back, here in this nice party, talking to that one woman that was criticizing Fisk in a few episodes beforehand, but here it looks like she's changing her mind or feeling very threatened, and I do feel like Fisk got to her now because she is very scared, and that gets me worried about the swordsman because later it does bite him in the ass too. I feel like this entire show is people getting bit in the ass a lot. But then we see Fisk and Vanessa being back together after actually killing someone. Vanessa is back in Fisk's arms. You see him wearing a white suit. You see her wearing a red dress. And you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of season 3 of Daredevil. This entire episode feels like an homage to that what's going on there. The reason I say that is because after this, we see that Poindexter is in a hospital point of the prison, and we see that he's being taken care of his wounds. And that's a good thing, right? He's finally getting help. Let's see what happens. Well, he uses his teeth a broken tooth and shoots it at one of the medical people. And that is an homage to the comics where he does that to someone. At least in the comics, he kills someone through that speed. But in this one, it looks like it just like hits someone's eye. But it still works with the brutality of it, because when Punisher does get out, he does kill the people there. So he's back and he's ready for revenge from Fisk and Vanessa. At least that's what I think is going on. And that's what I mean, that this episode feels like an homage to season 3, where Poindexter had found out that Fisk had used him and was ready to kill him. And it feels like he's getting back to this position again. But something that I almost forgot to mention, I like what they did. You know how like in season 3, whenever Bullseye was having a mental break, you would hear like this buzzing in his head, like really bad buzzing, right? Well, in here, they enhance that by giving it a blue tint. Every time he has that feeling, you see blue. We saw that in the beginning of the episode where he got put into general population and you heard the buzzing in his head. And then there was this nice blue around it. I actually really like that. I like what they do with the colors here. But then we get to see Kristen talk with Vanessa. They're chatting, and she's obviously wanting to check on her clients, making sure they're okay. But I liked how Vanessa was immediately, "Oh, me and my husband, we're together. We're good now. We don't need any help." Again, after killing someone, that's the thing that caused her to love her husband again. That is weird. But we got Matt, who finally showed up and is ready to talk to Kristen about, I think, everything. He's sounding like a madman, to be honest. He's rambling about things that's going on, about why you can't trust Fisk, why you can't be working with him, what he's doing to you, what's going on. And I love that. I love that Matt is acting like a crazed maniac, while us knowing that he is right. He is 100% correct about what's going on here. But Kristen is obviously just a regular person. She doesn't have any ties to any of this. But ever since she started working with Fisk, she did become that. And Matt did mention that in the first time they had a conversation that turned into a fight. And speaking of fights, we do see that Fisk is talking with the swordsman. Even though the swordsman thinks he has the upper hand, talking very smooth, like, how he can be. But then Fisk just throws it back in his face, knowing that he's the vigilante, the swordsman. I love that that's technically his new moniker now. That's actually his name. And I really hope that later on, probably not in this season, but in next season, that he actually ends up wearing a more comic accurate version of his suit. Maybe not 100% exactly, because that suit is not 100% good. They may do a Hawkeye type thing. But at least I hope they do more stuff with him. But it looks like, Fisk is threatening him with it. That because he knows that he's a vigilante, he's going to go after him. And I do feel like that does scare the swordsman off. And I really hope he doesn't die, to be honest. But speaking of scaring someone off, we see how the task force is actually being very toxic now, because the main guy that had accused Hector Ayala, the White Tiger, of killing his partner, had found a guy who was recording the party, even though I guess you're not supposed to. He threatens him in the most horrible way. He beats him up, like actual police brutality. And even the chief finds out. He basically tries to tell him that, if you do this, I will punish you, right? But the other guy obviously does not care, to the point where he puts the other guy's hand in a fryer, burning it. And I'm like, oh my god. I thought that the task force did not like what they were doing, but I guess he does. He does like the corrupting power, I guess. I guess I'm 100% wrong. But it does seem to be really getting at the chief a lot, to the point where she talks to BB. And I like that BB isn't stupid. So I don't know what she did last time, but I do feel like she's playing Daniel. Because when she talks with the chief, they talk strategy. They talk about what's going on. She wants to know the truth. She wants to know what's going on. Because the chief even points out why she even lied about the whole Daredevil and task force thing, right? And he even offered to expose what's going on. Because he even points out that he has dirt on these people in the task force. But honestly, I don't think this is going to go far. I do feel like either he's going to get blackmailed, from the point where we saw that, Fisk knew that he had probably had a legitimate child, or he may be killed off. And I don't think BB is going to be in danger at all, because I do feel like, she's one of the younger people, so maybe that's why. I'm not 100% sure there. But I do like that there is a fighting chance. But about fighting chances with this show. Fighting chances tend to be squashed. But back with the happy couple, we see that Fisk knows that Matt is basically watching him, because he whispers everything that's going on to Matt. And I love that he knows how Matt's powers work because Matt even talks to him in whispers. And I like that. I like that they know how to have this like secret communication. I also like what Matt does, that he goes to them, he acts really stupid, his normal blind ways, and he talks with Vanessa, and it's revealed that Vanessa is the one that put out the hit on Foggy because she was in charge. I like that he figured out that Fisk was away, so Vanessa was in charge. I like that he was able to figure that out. I didn't really think about it. I thought that maybe Vanessa was the one that, put out that hit. I wasn't 100% sure, but it's cool that we get confirmation that it was her that did it. I wonder why she did it. Maybe it has to do something with that Benny case that they were talking about. Again, I'm not sure. I don't know if they're going to elaborate in the next episode, because the next episode is the last one. But then guess what? Bullseye strikes. But instead of killing Vanessa, Matt goes in and takes the brunt of the hit. And we go into that like color coordinated thing, because when he's on the ground, he has that red color. Just like how when Bullseye, when he has that sound, is blue. I find that so interesting. But I'm so interested on the fact that, he does have that moral code that even his worst enemies, finding out that this lady is the reason why his best friend is dead, and he still goes and saves her. I like that's Matt's greatest strength and greatest weakness. That every time he tries to do good, it's just thrown in his face. But I wonder how he's going to prevail after this. But it looks like there's a whole chaos because there's a whole shooting, and they're trying to protect everyone now because Bullseye is back and he's ready for blood. And that gets me so excited for the next and final episode of this season. But hey, what did you think about this episode? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What are your thoughts on this show in its entirety? Are you ready for the last episode? I am genuinely interested on what you think. I am personally under the impression that this episode was one of the few ones where nothing was really changed. That this one was made for what they were going for. That it was this one and then the last episode. At least that's what I think. What do you think? Do you think that this episode was also composited and shifted and chopped? I'd really like to know. But if there's nothing else, this has been Dynamite. I hope everyone stays nerdy, and I hope to see everyone in the next video. Bye!